Oh, there you go. Now I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry. He's
awesome.
so cute and he wants to sit in my lap and I wanna let him, but he's like a crazy little pug puppy. So he just, like, leapt off my lap and almost, like, broke my computer.
Oh, this is mine.
Oh, hi! Who's that?
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel? That's a great name.
The underbite, right?
Yeah, how did you come up with the name Ezekiel for that guy?
He was my old roommate's dog, and I think she named him after the character of some show. I don't know, but he kind of just became mine.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I
he's my
love
dog
him.
now. Yeah,
Yeah, well, there you
he's
go.
yeah.
Dude, have you seen the show Shameless, by the way? You are, to me, dead ringer, like, voice. You sound exactly like Fiona.
Oh,
Does
really?
anybody has anybody ever told you that before?
I think I've heard it maybe once or
Okay,
twice, but yeah.
okay. Because now I've heard you on a couple of shows, right? Like, I heard you on Dopey, I was listening to a little bit of your interview with Fausto, and I've recently gotten super into Shameless, so I'm, like, binging it. I only just started it a few weeks ago, so it's like I'm watching it all the time,
Oh,
and I
wow.
think it's like that Northeast
Maybe.
Boston, like, that accent that she
Yeah.
just sounds like but every time I hear you talk, I'm like, "God, that sounds like Fiona," who I love, so it's, like, totally a compliment, but I'm like, "Dude,
Yeah,
this
no,
chick is so
Fiona's a
cool.
badass.
She's
She's great.
amazing."
Yeah,
Yeah, she's
that's so
amazing.
funny.
You definitely have, like, Fiona vibes, so
Oh, well, thank you.
sure. Well, welcome to the show, Glynis. I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and to finally meet you in person because we have all the same
Yeah,
friends. We like talk to the same people. We run in the
totally.
same circles. We've talked on Instagram, but we've never
Yeah,
like met in person. Although I feel like I've met you in person because I've
I
heard you
know.
on video.
I know. I feel like I know you too. And you were suddenly, and this is a good thing. Like, I don't know if you're doing your own social media or if you've got like a publicist or whatever, but you're all over Instagram suddenly. Like, all of your clips, like, it became very clear who you are. And that's hard to do. So, like, somebody did a good job with, like, it's reaching everybody's eyes. And I'm like, oh, who is this? Oh, I see her everywhere. Oh, she's friends with Jenna. Oh, wait, she also knows Fausto. Oh, shit, she's gonna see. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
it's good that you got that level of exposure because you're opening your rehab, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, gosh, we wish we were licensed about 2 months ago, but it's all in God's time. So, most likely, the Department of Healthcare Services will be doing their walkthrough end of December, first week of January. And the hope is that we'll be able to finally start,
Yeah,
taking patients and helping people in our community come January.
that's so exciting. And the fact that you, with your story, have gotten here is something I'm just so excited to share about with my audience. My audience is mainly women, like 90% women. Matt, by the way, pulled that statistic out. I don't want people hearing that because, like, the couple of men that listen really love me, and I don't want them to be like, wait, why am I listening to this pussy out show then?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
but it is mainly women, and
Yeah.
they tend to have stories like yours and like mine. My story is really pretty grimy also, and to see where you've gotten to and how well spoken you are and how put together you are and sophisticated and married and you're opening this business, it's just I'm getting chills while I talk about it. It's just so cool that you went from where you were to where you are, and it provides so much hope. And so I'm just really, really honored to have you on the show, sharing your time with us and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and thanks for the kind words. I always like don't know how to respond to compliments. I'm like, ah.
Just what you did, just, thanks. Well, I think it's weird because you've got 6 years sober?
Yes, 6.
Okay. So at 6 years, I still felt pretty close to the use, so I don't know if you do, and my sponsor used to say that, like, over time, it would get harder to remember, and I didn't believe her,
Mhm.
and I'll have 11 years in January, hopefully,
Wow. Congrats.
and thank you, and I remember everything really well, but I have definitely lost some of the I don't wanna say I've lost the gratitude, I could never lose the gratitude, but the memories, like, taking my breath away
Mhm.
doesn't
Yeah,
happen
no,
as much.
I remember I remember being in a jail cell, right?
Yeah, I do too.
And having been there for like a little while, you know what I mean? Like a year. And I remember at nights having moments where I would like think about a certain situation or experience, and I would literally like visibly like shake my head and be like, no, no, no. Like so like it was almost as if it had happened the day before, like the like I could connect so deeply to the shame. And that doesn't really happen anymore. But I think I don't know if it's because it's time has passed or because I've like embraced some of those shameful experiences and also like changed how I operate in the world on such a deep level that like I don't need to be ashamed of those things because that's not how I live anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
I think it's that. I think it's because, like, so I started my show in 2020, and it is really easy for me to talk about, like, my last couple of days using I lived in a doghouse and I went to jail all the time and, like, all this crazy shit. It's really easy for me to talk about and tell those stories, but I was listening to an older episode recently because I was gonna, like, rerun one, and I'm, like, sobbing through it as I tell my co-host, who is a social worker and a really good friend of mine, my original co-host, as I'm, like, talking to her about this day that wasn't even that bad. I was doing a shot in this, like, open field behind a tree, but I forgot the train goes that way. So I'm behind the tree from the street, but then here comes the sprinter, and I'm sitting there with my legs outstretched at 6 in the morning doing a shot of my arm, and the sprinter goes by. They couldn't see me probably, it's going really fast, but there was windows, and this is not that big. I mean, of the things that happened in my lifetime, that's not as big of a deal, but I'm, like, sobbing telling her, and I'm like, "God, I don't remember having such a hard time telling that story." But I think it's that what you just said, I've spoken through it so many times, I've talked through it, and there really is, it sounds cliche, but there's obviously so much power in just saying the truth out loud, and I think that's why a lot of it has released its emotional hold on me because 'cause I've said it so many times, you know?
yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. Yeah. I mean, the first year of my sobriety, I like very few people knew the details of like my story, if you will, or like my background. There were definitely women like that I was close to that I shared that with, but I don't know if I even shared all of the details. And it was like a slow unfolding
Me
and like
too.
kind of embracing all the things. And then it's only really in the last like 6 months to a year that I've like told the world, which the first time was, like, outside of, like, a recovery room or a meeting, which is very different, obviously. It was on Soft White, and it was, like, millions of people were gonna see, and I remember being like, "Oh my god, did I make a mistake? Is this gonna
No,
ruin me?"
you
I was like
definitely didn't. But
yeah.
did you see the response to your video is amazing.
Yeah, no, it was a cool experience. It was the interesting thing is like a lot of people who I hadn't talked to in like 15 years or like 20 years or like even people who knew me like in my hometown like growing up like their parents, one of my like old teachers, my math teacher, like people reached out and it was kind of cool. I was able to reconnect with some people who I hadn't talked to in a very long time and also connect with people who I'd never met. It was a cool experience and it kind of like it's that like cliche thing where we separate ourselves and we think that we need to be ashamed. And like, even when we start to embrace it, we still have this like belief in this idea of like what's going to happen or how people are going to like see us or view us or perceive us. And then we do the thing and we like show up authentically and we kind of like expose ourselves, if you will. And then like people, for the most part, I would say like meet us with open arms and say, me too.
Yeah, totally,
So
totally.
yeah, it was a
I
cool experience.
I did it, like, my episode came out a week before yours or something,
I
like, right
know, I
before
know.
yours, and for me, it was just a very different interview. With me, he didn't really interview me, I was just kind of, like, talking, and I treated it almost as, like, a lead at a meeting, because it's a whole long story, but, like, he forgot I was coming, I was at noon, he fell asleep while I was talking.
Really?
And yes, and
Wow.
he was trying not to, and it's not his fault, he's a really nice guy, you met him, but he was obviously really tired,
Yeah.
and so at some point I was like, "Okay, he is not here, I'm gonna talk to, like, the woman watching that maybe feels ashamed," and so I just did that, and it ended up, like, working out, but I hate your picture is good, I hated my picture, it's so bad that I, like, didn't want I was so glad he didn't put my last name on it or anything because I did not want my picture getting out there, but it's,
Well,
whatever.
what's really interesting is when he took the picture, I was like, "Do I smile?" Because like, I'm a smiley like, I'm a happy person these
He tells you
days, you
not
know?
to.
He was like,
Yeah.
"No, don't smile, it won't do as well." And it kinda gave me this, like, perspective of, like, I don't know if it's new with social media and people love to see the train wrecks and like the chaos and the trauma, or if this is something that's always existed. It's just like more apparent now that we are so connected through our devices. But I'm like, oh, people like to see a train wreck. They don't want to see a happy ending. They don't want to see, like, okay, they want to see like a good looking woman who is super fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they wanna see. I mean, truly, I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
yeah,
like
yeah. Well, especially his audience too.
yeah,
That's definitely like his thing, you know?
for sure.
But I'm jumping like way ahead. I referenced that you and Fiona sound the same because you're from Boston?
Massachusetts.
You're from
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Okay.
Worcester. Mhm.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about growing up, who was in the house, what your childhood looked like.
Yeah, I grew up in, like, Worcester County in, like, a small town in Worcester County, Gardner, Massachusetts, and mom, dad, younger sister, 2.5 years younger than me, and when I was, like, 11 years old, my mom left, and so that was kind of like a big tragedy in my life, I guess. Yeah, it was pretty tragic.
Did she stay nearby? Where did she go and what
Yeah,
made her
she
leave?
did. I mean, she was not getting along with my dad. She wasn't happy. She was going through like menopause, which I think, I don't know if she would say this or this is her perspective, but like I know this. I think like a hormonal shift that was happening within her was on the more severe of the spectrum. Like some women are like fine, they have a little hot flash and then they're good to go. And some women kind of are not. So that was happening, and I was just going through a lot of things too. I was really, really challenging as a preteen, 11, 12 years old. I was like running away. I was getting into fights. I couldn't get along with her. So I don't know the exact reason, but I think it was a multitude, all of those things. And I think she was just like, I just think she was like afraid to be a mom. It was like she was a really great mom when we were little. And I just don't know if she knew how to like really handle a really crazy 11-year-old girl who hated her.
Did she disappear from your life, or did you continue seeing her, like, your parents got separated and she was in the apartment complex down the street?
No, she lived about 20-25 minutes away with my grandmother, but she wasn't really present after that. And I kind of like refused to talk to her too. So she wasn't in our home. I wasn't spending the night with her and she wasn't really like consistently like showing up. And at the time I didn't really want her to be honest. I didn't really want anything to do with her. So I didn't like make it easy for her to have a relationship, but it's not that she wasn't willing to, but I just remember then it was like she was wanting to she would schedule like we would schedule something. I remember like for example, I think I was like, I don't know, 16 or something or 15 and we had plans for her birthday to like get a massage and she like came and like left early. Like she always had other stuff going on. Like she wanted to have like a life of her own and like I don't know that being like a mom full time was like a part of that idea. So,
Were you drinking and using before she left? Had you already started
yeah, yeah, not heavy, heavy drugs before she left, but I was like drinking, I was smoking weed, I was doing ecstasy, I was, doing cocaine.
at 11?
Yeah, 11, 11, 12. Mhm.
When do
Yeah.
you start doing ecstasy? How old are you when that what's the first, like, more serious drug that you do?
Yeah, 11, 12. 11, 12 is,
Okay.
like, when I started. She left when I was in the 6th grade, so I either was, like, 11 about to turn 12 or I, like, just turned 12. But even before she left, yeah, I was, like, smoking, I was drinking, I was, like, running away, hanging out with older boys, and then I was like, the more serious drug I did was crack.
At what age?
12.
No way.
Yeah.
How did that even happen? Who gave you crack at 12?
I had a boyfriend who was older and we would do coke and they would smoke it and then, I eventually smoked it too. And then we would do like Oxycontin to come down off the freebase and the crack. So that's kind of like when opiates kind of came and that was like 12, 13. You know what I mean?
Are you living at home with your dad and going to middle school while you're smoking crack and snorting Oxycontin?
Yeah. So I had a lot of issues with truancy. Shocker. And I was going to school sometimes. I wasn't going to school consistently. I was like put on like what they called was chins, which was like kids who aren't showing up to school, like truancy. It was like truancy probation for juveniles. And I was not living at home with my dad. I had a bedroom there, but I was a lot to handle. I would not listen, and my dad felt a lot of responsibility, I think, for my mom leaving and how it impacted me, and he just couldn't really hold the line with me. He didn't know how to say no, and he wasn't willing to like call the police, which is probably what he should have done. He probably should have called the cops on me because I was completely out of hand. He just didn't know what to do. So I'd be like, "I'm not coming home." And he'd be like, "Come home, please." And I'd be like, "No." So I was essentially like living with said older boyfriend in some like shitty apartment, and we were doing drugs, and I would go to school sometimes, but not consistently.
Did you go to high school? I mean, how far does your education go as all this is happening?
Yeah, so I end up going to like a charter bad kid school in the 7th grade. I do that for a year. And then 8th grade I go back to the regular middle school, and again I'm like making it past but kind of barely. And then 9th grade I'm at the high school, and I was in school until the 10th grade. I didn't pass into the 10th grade. I was in 9th grade 2 years because I was missing too much school, and I just like couldn't get my work done. It wasn't When I was there I did well, but I just wasn't there consistently. And then I think it was the 10th grade that I ended up going into like the juvenile detention system, and at that point I was no longer in school at all.
So, do you have like right now, because you're very well spoken. How did you get like do you get your GED late? I know we're jumping way ahead, but do you eventually get your GED or go to school or something?
Yeah, so I went to juvenile detention. I went from juvenile detention to like a girls' recovery home. And I'm going to school kind of there, but it's like kind of fragmented schooling. So in juvie, all the schooling there's two teachers and there's, 60 girls or something like that. And most of them don't have more than a 6th grade education. So that's kind of where we're at. And they have me on like a screen on the computer, kind of doing my own schooling, but I'm not meeting the prerequisites that I need in order to go from 10th to 11th grade or 9th to 10th. But I'm in school. Technically, I'm just not where I need to be. And then when I go to the girls' recovery home, I have a bunch of work from my teachers. So I'm doing some stuff from that, but I'm still just so far behind. There's like almost no catching up. And so when I finally get out of the recovery home before I turn 18, I go to like a dual enrollment program where I'm able to actually get my diploma and my associates. And I do that for about a year. And I think it was going to take 2 years for me to kind of catch up to where I need to be. So I was in like college level, like prerequisite classes, but I was getting credit towards like a English 101. I would do English 101, and it would be like I did a year of English for high school, and then I would also get a college credit. So I do that for a year. So I get some credits. I'm almost at my diploma, and then I start using again, and I kind of like don't finish it. And so I end up getting my GED.
Okay, okay. I also think, and I was thinking this when I was listening to another episode of yours, that another interview that you did. I think though, and I'll be curious to hear what you think about this. I want to follow up with this towards the end. The street education that you got, and you had to have a business sense with what you did later. And I really believe that those things can enhance our lives in sobriety. I think that they can give us leverage and advantages in sobriety. And I think that you're definitely an example of that because you've
Yeah,
been able to,
I think that's
you know,
true. For
I mean,
sure.
it has to. It
I
stays
think
with
a
you.
lot of the like skills that I developed in like surviving before getting sober, like all these like tools of self-reliance and survival skills, whether it was like hustling or making money or like paying the bills or like whatever it was. I always say like now I use like my powers for good rather than evil, you know?
Yeah, I say
And
the
that's
exact
really
same thing. I say the exact same thing. Yeah.
and a lot of those things did translate. I did ended up when I got sober, I did end up going back to college for about a year. But at the time, I was like working 3 jobs. I was like a live-in house manager. I was an admissions person. I was doing business development. I was doing all these things. And I was working from like 8 a.m. till like 11 p.m. And then I would go to school at midnight virtually. And so I was taking, I think I took like 2 courses during like a Christmas or a winter winter, whatever it's called, you know what I mean? You could do like the really quick pace 2-week courses, 2, 3 week courses during winter break. I did that and it was like relatively easy. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can do this. Like I can be a student. And then I took, I think it was four the next semester, and it was like the fall semester. And oh my God, it's not that the schooling was hard. I took on way too
Too
much.
much. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I wasn't sleeping. It was totally crazy. And I did end up, I think I dropped one of the classes, and finished three of them. But after that, I was like, okay, I need a break from school. And I hadn't gone back. I still, it's probably one of my bigger regrets though, was like
Really? Okay.
not, yeah, not getting a degree and going to school. Like it's something that I always wanted, and even before I got sober, it was something that I always wanted to do, and I think I can still do it. I think we're capable of
You
doing anything.
absolutely, yeah.
I just don't know
Ab
if it's necessary for me at this
Well,
point.
and I always felt that way too. I always really regretted not finishing, but at some point I stopped feeling that way, maybe around the time that I ended up owning a gym out here too for a little while. I had a studio and got married. I know, I think my life has unfolded in a way that I don't regret it as much anymore because it doesn't feel necessary. But what put you, I'm going to run it all the way back, juvie in 7th grade or 8th grade the first time you go. What puts you in juvie back then?
Yeah, I got a DUI when I was like before I even had a permit, and that kind of started it, but I already was kind of in the court system because of the truancy stuff.
Okay.
And I got the DUI. I think I was 14 when I got the DUI. And then I was on probation and I started failing drug tests. And so typically, when you get committed to the state till you're 18, it's because you did something really, really, really terrible, or you've done a bunch of things a bunch of times. That wasn't necessarily the case with me. I wouldn't have been committed to the state for just the DUI. But what happened was that I was like testing positive for some pretty serious drugs, and I just remember the judge at the time, who I thought was this like evil mean woman, which she totally wasn't. She like kind of saw how bad things were in my life, and she had court appointed me, or court required me to go to treatment. And so I fail a drug test or something like that, and I go to juvie for the first time for like maybe a month or two. And then I get out and I go right to a treatment center. And I had insurance through my dad, and this is before like Obamacare, and things were really different then. So I had private insurance because my dad was a veteran, and it didn't cover the adolescent treatment program. And at the time in Massachusetts, I think there was only 2 in the entire state. And so they end up letting me out early after 2 weeks. I go back to court and she's like, "Oh, no." And I started using as soon as I get out. And in hindsight, I think she ended up committing me to the state, because by committing me to the state, she was giving me some resources that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and some accountability. But yeah, so now I was required to go to treatment, and I now had, Mass Health and some of the resources through the Department of Youth Services to get some treatment before I turned 18. So I think in hindsight it was probably the best decision, but most of the girls that I was locked up with at that time had done something like serious, like I was in there with a girl who had stabbed someone, and a lot of the other girls had maybe, had 7, 8, 9 charges, had just kept getting in trouble.
Yeah. What started to become your main drugs of choice at that time?
Heroin. Yeah. It went from Oxycontin to heroin, and heroin was my drug of choice. Yeah.
Okay. And are you shooting it already back then in middle school, early high school?
Right before I go into lockup is like when I start shooting it. Yeah. So probably like 15, 16, something like that.
So you have to detox in juvie like the first time you go? Are you sick as shit?
I am, but it's not as severe when you're an adolescent. It's just the withdrawal symptoms are just not the same. They're just not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I also know because I work with some adolescents today, and some of these kids come in using pretty heavy drugs. Maybe 1% of them, 1 out of 25 will actually have like withdrawal symptoms outside of maybe some sleeplessness and anxiety. They don't kick the same as adults. Because I
Oh,
remember,
wild.
yeah, so, something biologically, it's very, very rare. Very
Interesting.
rare.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So you stay in juvie until you're 18. I mean, what's the process here that gets you out of being committed
Yeah,
to the
so I'm
state.
in juvie till I'm 17, and then at 17, I get out and I go straight into the recovery home, and that's required by the Department of Youth Services. And so I'm there for like 8 months, and I get out a month and a half, 2 months before my 18th birthday. And I go home to my dad's house, but I'm on the bracelet until I turn 18, and I'm going to like, an IOP of a sort through the Department of Youth Services, and I'm drug testing, and I have a very strict, like, I can't even leave the house on my own. And then finally, when I am able to, I have a very strict like curfew. And if I'm not home, they will send me right back to DYS. So I'm like on really, really strict restrictions at that point.
So, did you believe at that time, like, "I'm a drug addict and I should stop," or did you think, like, "This bitch judge is why I'm in this position, I'm actually fine," or did you think, like, "Maybe I have a problem?"
At first, I thought it was the bitch judge, and then when I finally got caught, because I had ran away for a little bit before they caught me, I had, like, been pulled over, caught a new charge, and I had been copping drugs, and, like, I kinda had, like, a realization, like, "Oh, like, I have a problem, like, I'm a drug addict for
Oh,
sure."
you did? Okay.
And by the time I was in the recovery home, I, like, knew 100% that I was a drug addict, and I knew I had a problem. And then I was kind of exposed to, recovery and sobriety and 12-step stuff, and I kinda, like, started to connect with that. I really did. It did impact me, but when I did finally turn 18, I had intentions of staying sober, like, that was my plan, but I also thought that I just needed to not use drugs. And so I didn't think that I needed to stop drinking. Like, I didn't think alcohol was a part of it. I was so young. I was like, "I'm 18," like, finally making friends my age because I'm not like the crazy, 12-year-old doing drugs, like, they're all drinking, college parties, that kind of stuff, and I was like, like, I can drink.
Totally. How long is it again before you're strung out?
After I turned 18, I did stay on the straight and narrow till I turned 18, and then I still had some, like, adult charges that I had a suspended sentence on for when I had gotten, like, pulled over. So I was on adult probation for a couple months, maybe 3 or 4 months, and I stayed sober probably about 6 months after my 18th birthday. I think I probably was started drinking before that, but, like, I started using drugs probably about 6 months after I turned 18.
Okay. And what does your life start to look like then? Because I know at some point you moved to Texas, right? So, what does your life start to look like? 18, you didn't want to stop drinking. You eventually start drinking again and using. What does your life look like on a day to day at that time? Where are you working? What are you using?
Yeah. So 18, I start using again. I'm working as like a stripper, an exotic dancer. And it's a lot more painful when I start using this time around. When I was younger, I didn't necessarily know what I was getting myself into, and by the time I was, like, consumed by it, it was like it was it just was what it was. So, now at this point, I start drinking and then eventually start using again, and then I get, like, kinda like I pick up right where I left off, and I'm, like, hooked pretty quickly. I'm, like, experiencing withdrawal symptoms, and they're a lot more severe than they were when I was under 18. And I, like, know for sure that I'm down for the count again, and it's, like, very painful because I had had a taste of what it meant to be sober and what recovery had to offer, and I had, like, found a community, and I'd, like, made some friends, and, like, I really never had that sense of connection with other girls, especially women, but the healthy people in my life until that experience in sobriety, and I had, like, had belly laughs and reconnected to, like, what it meant to be be a teenage girl. 'Cause the truth is, like, I hadn't been living a normal teenage girl life, and when I did get sober, I, like, the circumstances weren't ideal. I was locked up, and then I was in this, like, halfway house, but I was, like, around other girls my age who were going through the same thing, and we were, like, kinda, like, learning how to be like girls again. And at 18, when I started using again and I realized, like, I was down for the count, it was, like, very, very, very sad, dark, and painful. I remember, like, when I think about the memories even, it's always nighttime, and I don't even know if it was because it was always nighttime because I was up all night sleeping all day, or because it was just, like, kind of a dark
Or it just
period.
feels like a dark time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was really sad, and, like, I knew that I was, like, that I was not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how long do you work at the strip club?
I work at the strip club off and on for 3 years, so I'm working there for a while. I go back to detox a few times. I try to clean up. I'm picking up possession charges here and there. I'm being put on probation, can't stay sober, back on the I'm getting on the methadone clinic to try and get off the opiates because the detox situation's not working. I'm not really doing anything outside of like trying to get physically separated. I'm not like changing my lifestyle or the people I'm around or how I'm operating in the world. I'm just trying to change the fact that I'm putting, opiates and drugs into my body, and end up being on the methadone clinic for about a year. And I, find a boyfriend who's not an alcoholic or an addict, nice guy. And things are okay for a little bit. Like I'm on the methadone clinic, not ideal, but like not terrible.
That was always my thing too. I believed that for so, so, so long, and I feel like it's so common for opiate addicts. I just believed, like I was in, and my audience has definitely heard me tell the story before, but when I even got to residential treatment for the first time, I told everybody that I was not really a drug addict. I had accidentally gotten strung out on heroin. I didn't know you had to do it every day. And I was 30, like I was old. And I'd been doing cocaine and drinking way too much my whole 20s. And I believed that that had been successful, but it was not successful because my life wasn't progressing at all. There was a deep sadness when I knew that I wasn't living the way that I was supposed to. I wasn't living in alignment with like my highest self, you know? And I remember telling people, I told my first sponsor, she came over because I had to get a sponsor, and she came over and sat with me. And I was like, look, I really appreciate your time. But just so you know, like, I'm not actually a drug addict. I just accidentally got strung out on heroin.
Right.
And she was really nice about it, but I'll never forget what she said. She said, "Okay, I mean, I can see how that makes sense to you, but just so you know, like, normal people don't accidentally get strung out on heroin."
Right. They don't ever use heroin ever a
They
day in
don't
their life.
ever use it in the first place, and I think of, like, my girlfriends in high school that went on to go to law school and all this stuff. They would never, because I came across it through a guy I was dating. If they were dating a guy and they found out he was doing heroin, they would call the fucking police. They would never go back over there, and I had to, but it took me years to reconcile that fact, and I just kept believing that if I could physically detox the substance, that I would be okay. And then there was this awful period of time where, because I was more of a stimulant person, I always just wanted meth. I didn't want to get strung out again. And I would just say, I'm going to do meth. I'm going to do meth casually. It's going to be fucking fine. And every time I ended up strung out on heroin. And it was just, it like really blew my mind, which is one of the reasons why. So the recovery program in particular that resonates with me the most is because I couldn't I was truly powerless over heroin in particular. I did not feel powerless over alcohol. I believe that I am. It will lead to, like I heard you say on Dopey, which I loved,
Right.
shooting heroin in your neck is
Is an
a
abnormal reaction to alcohol. Yes, it's
yes,
so
exactly.
crazy. Like
Yeah,
that is not
yeah,
normal. But
right.
sometimes I could drink for a period of time. And although I would get DUIs and I would get into fights and I would piss myself and things would happen, it just was not even comparable to how low things would get, how quickly with, heroin and meth, honestly,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. No, I had a DUI and I'd gone to jail a second time for a violation of that DUI when I was in residential treatment the first time, telling everybody I had never been arrested and that I wasn't really a drug addict because I didn't count that DUI. I was like, that's not a real arrest. Like
Right,
everybody
right,
has a
right.
fucking DUI. It's like,
Yeah.
no, not everybody has a DUI.
Well, here's the
So
thing too, like a person that's not a real alcoholic or not a real addict, I think there are people in the world who maybe have two drinks, get a DUI, but the difference is those people, they get the DUI, they're told they can't drink, they never ever ever do it again. Right. And they're able to just stop or moderate and never like get in the car again. They recognize the mistake. And like the difference between me and those people is I get a DUI and I'm like, oh, I just need to like not drink and get in the car. Like if I'm going to get blackout, I need to give someone my keys. And honestly, that never works either because I try to bite you when you take my
right.
keys.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, totally. I know. I know. So in the strip club, back on heroin, what eventually moves you to Texas? Because I feel like Texas is when things, like, really kind of fall off a cliff for you in different ways. What moves you there?
I meet a boyfriend. I have a couple boyfriends through 18 to 21. all normal guys, not addicts at all. Like, and I'm like just trying to like get myself out of like my hometown, my family system, and like connect myself to someone who has more stability. And I hope that that will help me. And the truth is there's for a period of time, oftentimes like I do get better. Like I am just drinking for a little bit, and like I do get off the methadone clinic, and like things are chill for a while until they're not. I can't sustain. I can't hold it together. And then I break the whole thing down, like burn down the house. And then I, do the same thing over again. Like, okay, well, that didn't work this time. I'll just, ooh, the
Did you
puppy.
hear him? All right, come here. You wanna come here? Come here.
Poor
Okay. I
baby.
know, I know.
Hi.
Do you wanna say hi? Oh, look at
So
his crazy
cute.
face. You're
So
okay.
cute.
You're
Oh my
okay.
God. What a
The little
baby.
cry just, like, gets me, and he has learned that recently. That cry will
Mm.
make me do anything. Even you could hear it through the computer, that's so
I
funny. He's like,
know. So
"Oh,
cute.
mommy." Okay,
Yeah.
so
So I get into another relationship with another nice guy, and he essentially is relocated to Texas for work. He like finds out right before he's about to leave that I'm using heroin. He didn't know. He knew something was up with me, but like he didn't know it was heroin. I like never even he's like a normal person. He's from Greenwich, Connecticut. He's
oh
like
god.
heroin, like
Right,
what? Like maybe she's doing a little cocaine. That wouldn't be that
right.
crazy, sniffing a line or two, but he's like heroin, like it just like it was not even in his like consideration. And then he like finds out, and we had already planned to like move, and I had a bunch of possession charges hanging over my head. I'm on probation. I can't stay sober. And I'm like, I just need to get the fuck out of here. I need to escape the law. I don't want to go to jail. I keep trying to go to detox for little spin dries. I get out and I use again. It's like a waste of time. I just cannot keep it together. I'm like, I just need to get out of New England and, be in this relationship with this nice guy. I'll kick cold turkey. I'll get away from the law, and I'll just like, live a happy life and deal with this later. And so I moved to Texas, and I do kick cold turkey and dry up for a while, and I'm still drinking. And I'm drinking a lot, but I'm like working as like a bartender. Things are okay in comparison to how they've been. And eventually I find amphetamines, and I start using meth while I'm in Texas. And things got crazier at that point.
So, are you on the run when you go? Like, are you, like, not able to go back to Massachusetts at this point?
Yeah, no, I am on the run. I had absconded, I think is the word they use.
Discounted, totally,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, so I go back to Texas for a few months. I actually come back to Massachusetts to visit. I say visit. There was some stuff going on with me. I was 21. I wasn't on drugs at this point. I dried up in Texas. I was drinking. And I go back to Massachusetts to deal with some, personal stuff that was going on with me. I'm only supposed to be there for a few days. And I end up relapsing, overdosing, picking up a new drug charge all before the sun goes down my very first day in Massachusetts.
No way, are you serious?
Yeah, I landed at 6 a.m. and I was like in the hospital by 4:30.
Oh,
uh,
shit! What
yeah, so
happened? What happened from landing to what
um
happened?
well, so I landed, I had a medical procedure done. They had given me some medication, and it was the first time that I had this experience where it was like really like flip switch, like on off switch, where that had happened before, but it wasn't as palpable or obvious to me. But like I'm given a little bit of medication, the flip is switched, and I'm like, I need to go get some heroin now. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
wow, yeah, okay.
And I call, two of my old dealers. I'm each of them, I hadn't heard from me in like 8, 9 months, right? And I meet both of them, obviously, because who knows who has the better heroin. And one fronts me a half gram, the other one fronts me another half gram. And I think this is around the time where I think it was probably cut with fentanyl, is like when it started. Like people weren't doing straight up fentanyl, but things were starting to be cut because I had always known since I was a teenager from that first time in treatment that like they like taught me harm
Do a little.
reduction. Yeah. So I knew that. And so I got this heroin. I go back to my family's house, and I do the tiniest bit, like probably less than a point. Truly, like the smallest amount, and I didn't even get it all the way in, and I fell out and overdosed for the first time, and it was somebody from my family, somebody close to me found me. They had a, newborn baby in their arms. It was really traumatic. And of course they call 911. 911 comes, they Narcan me a bunch of times. They send me to the hospital. My dad is working as an engineer at the hospital. He is there as I arrive in the ambulance. I'm having a seizure, and all during this time, they find heroin on me. And so I had a warrant for an old possession charge, and then I pick up a new possession charge, and I absconded for almost a year.
Oh my
And so
god.
and so I have no recollection for 2 days because I had the, benzos in my system and the opiates, so I'm essentially out for 2 days. I go to court, don't remember court, and I wake up 2 days later in MCI Framingham, which is, like, the women's state prison, and, like, I have literally no idea how I got there. Like,
Holy shit.
yeah, I'm like, "Where the fuck am I?"
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is like the definition of unmanageable.
Yeah.
Everything that you just said. It's just such chaos and so
Crazy. And
unmanageable.
I
It's
had been
insane. It's
essentially off
insane.
drugs for 8 months, like, and managing relatively well, drinking to excess for sure, but, yeah, 8 months completely separated, and within 12 hours, like, I'm right back at it, like, as soon as it was, like, yeah, it was a really crazy experience. It was gnarly. I didn't
So
spend
how
a week
long
there, I spent a lot
Yeah,
longer
I
than
was gonna say. So wait, so how long do you stay now? Because you wake up in jail. How long do you stay this time?
Yeah, so I'm in this state prison, and what's crazy is like my charges weren't felony charges. They were like petty possession. There was just multiple, and then I kept running. So I would have gone to county jail. It was a charge where I should have gone to county jail, but in Worcester County, I think Holyoke was like the county jail for women there. It was like full capacity or something was going on there. So I ended up just ending up at the state prison instead. And I spent maybe I don't know, 6 months there or something like that. And I'm going to court for two separate charges in two separate cities, the initial charge from, 2 years before, and then the new charge, and I end up getting everything dropped because my family shows up, and from their perspective, and they don't understand alcoholism really at this point. I was doing better in Texas. I was in a nice relationship. I was not on drugs. I wasn't going to jail. I had a safe home, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I was drinking. They didn't really know that though. So they're like, if you put her on probation and you keep her here, she's going to use and she's probably going to die. Like, they were like, please just let her go back. She had a job, like a normal job. She wasn't working as a stripper. Like, please just like let her go back. And this judge like hears them, and then the probation actually advocates for it because I just leveled with them, like, I cannot stay here. And I really did think it was a geographical thing. And I think there is a small component of that, but it's a lot more. And
There Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes that works, and
it
you were
helps.
better. It's like harm reduction, like you
Yeah.
said, sort of,
Yeah,
you
like it
know?
helps. It helped
Yeah.
for sure. I wasn't overdosing and dying in Texas. Like, so judge drops the charges for the old charge, and then I have to go to court the next day at a totally separate court in my hometown. So I'm at like Fitchburg Court, and then I have to go to Gardner Court the next day for the other charge that I had gotten from when I was, out overdosed, and they found the drugs on me. And the judge for that courthouse was not there, and the judge from the previous day happened to be filling in at that court, which
Oh,
is really
wow.
crazy. Yeah, and he was very like compassionate, and he dropped a second charge, and he was like, "Go back to Texas, like get your shit together, like, you're free essentially." I had been in jail maybe for 6 months, and then I left jail and went to a recovery program, and I was going to court while I was in this like recovery program, this like state program in Massachusetts. And when all the charges were dropped, I like probably should have stayed and see it through, and I just left. And I used right after.
So
I
you
never went back to
left
Texas.
Oh, you didn't?
I
Oh,
did
no!
eventually, I did
Oh,
eventually,
okay, but
but,
not
like,
like that
no.
day.
No, I stayed there for, like, I think it was August, and then September, October, November, I, like, stayed there for, like, 3 more months, just, like, using on the streets, drinking, all this stuff. I had, like, an opportunity, and I blew it, and I don't think it was the judge's fault, and I really had intentions, and that's, like, the crazy thing about alcoholism and addiction is, I really had intentions, like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back to Texas, I'm gonna, like, get back on track, like, this is the plan," and then, like, something happens where, like, my mind brings me back to, like, going copping that one bag before I leave, it's
Right, right.
crazy.
Right. So where do you go those 3 months?
I'm like couch surfing. I'm at my dad's for a few days, but he like knows I'm using. He's like, you need to get the fuck out of here. I'm staying at my friend Pee Wee's and I'm staying at like another friend Dave's. I'm like hopping on couches. I'm like on the streets at certain points. I'm like kind of like doing a little bit of everything. And I ended up leaving in November because I had no way, like I was on the streets and it was so cold.
It's
It was
cold
like,
out there.
it was
It's
too
hard to be
cold.
homeless out there. Yeah,
I was like, all right, time to go back. And then I went back
totally.
to Texas and kicked cold turkey again.
So were you in communication with your boyfriend the whole time while you're in jail, while you're in treatment, and is he, like, saying, "It's okay, I love you, just come back"?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, okay,
Yep.
okay.
He was
So
like,
he allows you to come back.
yeah.
Okay.
He, like, wants me to come back. He's like, "Fucking get out of there. Like, when are you coming back?" You know? He didn't he was doing the best he could. He had
For sure.
absolutely no idea. Though what he should have done is probably, like, never even
Never
brought me
spoke to you
to
again.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
like, honestly, he should have
Yeah,
given me an ultimatum like, "Hey, you stay in that treatment center, you can't live here, like, you can't come back here." But, like, he was just, like, doing the best he could. He had absolutely no experience with this kinda situation, and the truth is, like, everything that I would say to him, like, although it ended up being, like, lies, like, I believed the lies that I was telling him, like, my intentions were good. Like,
totally.
I really wanted to do right by him, I wanted to do right by my family. I didn't wanna be, like, a strung out heroin addict, but
No. I always say this, there's a guy around here that shares sometimes, and it just always stuck with me. If you had hooked me up to a lie detector test
oh, yeah,
anytime I was getting out of jail or going into treatment, begging my mom for detox at this place, oh my god, if you had hooked me up to a lie detector test and they were like, "Janine, are you gonna do it this time?" I would pass. I
right.
would have passed those lie detector tests every time. Or if they asked, "Do you want to be clean?" And I said, "Yes," I would have passed a lie I could have been high and I would have passed a lie detector test. I mean, I didn't want to be doing it. And that idea of using against your will is such a
100%.
scary place to be. And I think that's what often, I hate the word normies, but normies don't understand. Like, how could you possibly be doing this against your will? And it's like, no, I get that. I understand what it looks like to you, but I swear to you on my dad, on everything I love, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And you would have passed a lie detector test.
Well, it's the same way that if you tell a normal person to shoot heroin, they would be doing it against their will. Like they couldn't do it even if they wanted to, the same way that we can't. You know what I mean?
Right.
That we
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
stop. It's like
Yeah. That's
it's a
true. That's a good way
crazy
to look at
it's a
that. Yeah.
crazy thing. It's
Yeah.
like if you put a normal human being, never used drugs in their life, doesn't have any alcoholism in their, genetics or family, and you said, "Shoot this dope," like, they'd be like, "No." You would have to hold them down and put that needle in
Totally.
their arm, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
It's a humbling experience for sure, but that's kind of where I ended up, and then I eventually went back to Texas, and we were together for a little bit, but I eventually, like, found drugs out there, and so I started doing meth primarily and eventually heroin, tar heroin out there, and kinda things get all wonky.
Okay, yeah. Wonky's a good way to describe it. And again, because I know, because I've heard a bit of your story on other shows. Talk about wonky. I mean, this part, and this is actually what I really wanted people to hear, because to hear that you could be in this world and in this culture for that long as a woman and get out and get married and open a business, that to me is just what it is, so beautiful. So, whatever you're comfortable sharing about this part of your life, I would love for you to share how this even happens.
Well, the relationship ends eventually because I'm so chaotic. He's like, "I just don't know how to help you," and it's ruining my life, to be honest, and it was, I was not a, safe person to have in your life, especially in your home, and eventually, I end up meeting a guy who is a pimp, and I become a prostitute, and I'm in that for, like, 2 years, and I'm selling my body, and, I have this pimp, and it's just, like, pure chaos, and I become, an escort. I mean, a prostitute really, like, an escort, I feel like is like the word that I would use to, like, make it sound more glamorous, but the truth is, like, especially in the beginning, it was not glamorous. It was prostitution, and I wasn't forced to do it. I made the decision, and I just was willing to do really whatever I needed to do in order to continue to drink and use the way I wanted to drink and use, and when I and that relationship ended, I was very dependent on him, you know what I mean? He had a credit score, he had a bank account, he had a regular stream of income. He was like paying the bills essentially. And like, although I had jobs, I like wasn't responsible financially. I didn't have anything. And so it was like a means to an end to have a place to live and to have food on the table and to have a car. And then it became kind of, I guess I became like kind of indoctrinated into this like culture and lifestyle. And I don't know if it happened overnight or what, but I went into it kind of knowing because I'm not a stupid person. Like even when I was younger, and on drugs, like drugs were definitely running my life. Like I was being driven by the dope. It was like I was in the passenger seat of the car, and like all of my decisions were entirely based on, how I can continue to get what I wanted and have it consistently. But I really went into it thinking that like I was kind of like getting one up on him, like I'm going to learn the game and I'm going to do this for myself, which I eventually did, but it was just like a very dark place to
Yeah.
be.
At a great cost though, you know?
Right.
So how did you, and this is Mike, right?
Yeah, Money
Money Mike.
Mike.
Money Mike. How did you meet Money Mike?
I did a little time in county jail in Texas, in Fort Worth. I met a girl who introduced me to a friend of hers, and that friend he was trying to like be a pimp himself. And he wasn't built like that, you know what I mean? But like she was trying to be a pimp. And so he was like kind of trying to impress Money Mike. And I reached out to him when I was like down and out on the streets one day, nowhere to go. And this friend I had met in county jail was like, hit up my boy. And I hit him up and he picked me up with Money Mike. And then he was like, he didn't lie. I mean, I wouldn't say he was 100% honest. He painted like a fantasy picture of like how things were going to be, which is, I think, typical in this
Yeah, it is.
particular
For
career
sure.
choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it feels like a partnership.
Yep, absolutely. But I mean, he didn't like trick me into turning tricks. Like I knew what it was. So, I definitely had a part in making a decision as to, what I chose to do. And, he had motives and I had motives and it kind of just happened that way. And for a while it was working.
Yeah. So you said in the beginning, you said especially in the beginning, it's like harder. What? Why is that?
I mean, you're in the streets, and if you're not in the streets, you're like on Backpage. At least then you were. I don't know how it is now, but like Backpage was like a big place where you can make a lot of money. You post an ad and you would get 100, 200, 300 calls in a night. You post, and within 5 minutes, the phone is ringing back to back to back to back to back. Yeah. And you're going through all these calls and you're trying to like weed out who's serious and who's just, like fucking around on the phone. And it was like a lot more you were going into it a lot more blind of like who you were meeting and where you were going and who you were going to see and what was going to happen. It was much more blind and it was pretty hot. Like, yeah, it was not safe for sure.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So as time went on and I became more like embedded in the scene, if you will, it became more predictable, safer, higher end, a little bit more, you know, escorty, if you will. But
Well,
in the
and you
beginning, it
build a
wasn't that way.
clientele, I'm assuming. You build people,
Yeah, you
regulars.
build a clientele, regulars, and like you end up kind of being posted on sites that are more high end because you have a reputation, ones that you can't just kind of go and sign up for. And when you have that reputation and people know you and you've been like reviewed and verified and all this stuff, people are more willing to give you personal information. So you're able to like kind of suss people out before seeing them and make sure that they're legitimate and get referrals from them, from other, providers who are really embedded in the community to give the okay. And it's just a little bit, it's still what it is, but it's more money, less volume, safer, higher end clients.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of like building any business of clientele. Like what you just described is how you build personal training too. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like that's,
right.
you know. So where are you living during this time while you're working?
I mean, we start like at his mom's apartment in the projects, and then we have like a motel room, and then we end up living in like a loft in Dallas, like a nice place, and we're kind of like building things up. And there's a bunch of other girls eventually, and that kind of thing. And eventually, when I like break free of that whole thing, I escape, if you will,
No,
and
you
and
did. You escaped,
Mhm.
and that's what will you share, like, how what you did and why that even because the way that you described it makes so much sense, which is that slowly over time, like, he has your ID, the cars are in his name, because I haven't like, of all I did some, like, robbery stuff, I sold some things, but this particular, like, way of hustling money, I don't know as much about, but when you said that, it totally made sense to me. So will you just walk us through, like, how you get to a point where you actually had to, like, escape from this guy?
Yeah, so, I mean, he has your birth certificate, he has your Social Security card, he has your, your ID, the phone's in his name, the car's in his name, the apartments are in his name. I mean, he has, the bank account, he has all the things. So, he has control in that way, and then there's, like, a level of psychological, control that he has and fear that's instilled, like, "Oh, this is what I'll do if," And so I get to a point where it's like, I'm like, this is stupid. Like my intention going into it was to like learn the game and get out. And like I've done that and I don't need him anymore. I don't need him to keep me safe anymore because like I know the people that I'm seeing. Like I don't need him to like teach me how to like recognize if it's law enforcement. Like I don't need him to sit down the street when I see people. At this point, I'm doing like it's, like, more like I'm seeing people for, like, 1 or 2 or 3 days straight, you know what I mean? And I'm making a lot it's a totally kinda different deal. It's, like, truly like a high-end escort
Like
type
escort,
deal.
yeah.
Mhm. And he's drinking a lot, I'm making all of the money. Some of the girls are making money, but, like, they're not motivated, you know what I mean? You have to push them to work. They'll intentionally not answer calls, they don't wanna work. I mean, they don't wanna go see strange men, it's not fun, especially if they're, like, in the beginning and they don't have that reputation, right? And so, I'm, like, kinda doing all this and I'm like, "This is stupid." I'm like, "I don't wanna be here anymore." So, yeah, I have, 2 of my regulars kinda help me escape in the middle of the night. He's out with a couple girls, they just posted and he's, like, out with them and, I, like, get all my shit and I had bought most of the stuff in the house, so I don't take everything, I, like, leave the bed there, but I take, like, all the silverware, the plates. I leave, like, enough silverware and and spoons and plates for them, like 3 of each or whatever, but I'm, like, taking all my clothes, I'm taking, like, the and micro everything. I had bought everything, like, or my clients had, and I take off, and I don't have a car, and I don't have really anything but, like, a hotel room that's already, like, booked out in my name, and I am staying there, and so he knows where I am because he's the one who booked me the hotel room in the first place, so I'm just paying cash for this hotel room every day, and I don't have an ID to get a new one. Yeah, so I'm doing that for a while, and I'm super paranoid, and I'm, like, kind of, like, just squirreling away money for a few months, like a month and a half, and then I was able to get a car. And then I'm staying at a friend's for a little bit, and then I'm able to get an apartment, and yeah.
He has your birth certificate and your ID?
Oh, yeah. Everything.
S so how do you have that conversation where he says, "Give me your birth certificate?"
I don't really remember. It's not like
Or maybe it's just in your stuff and somehow he holds
yeah,
on to it?
I don't remember if there was an actual conversation. It's kinda just like
Well, I bet it goes like this. You need a current idea for an ID for Texas, right? Because maybe it's still Massachusetts, and it's like, "Here, give me this is what you're gonna need, A, B, and C. I'll take you to the place to get it," and he just keeps it. He just holds on to it.
I think that's probably what happened because I remember there was a period of time I didn't have an ID because I had been licensed in Massachusetts. And I'm trying to get an ID here, and I couldn't in Texas. I couldn't get an ID, and like he was like helping me figure it out. I had to get my birth certificate from the state of California because that's where I was born. That took like 2 weeks. It had to be mailed before I could go get an ID. There was like a whole thing that I went through, and yeah, I'm sure he just like
He
took
just
it.
keeps it. Yeah,
And,
just
like
kept
and
it.
it's not like you really have a choice. It's like if you fight back on that, he's like, "Why? Are you not, like, down for me? You're not down." It's like, okay, that's just kinda like what you do." And then I kinda got to a point where I'm like, "Oh, I'm, like, so deep in." So, yeah.
So, you're in the hotel for a little while that's under your name and he knows where you are. Was there a concern that he would come try to get you back?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was driving by all the time. Yeah, he was driving by all the time, but it was just, like, all fear tactics.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like, he didn't
So
have the a key to come in. There was a couple times I thought he had like, I didn't know. I was super paranoid. I was freaking out. I was freaking out. And I don't think that in hindsight, like, because I had never seen him get violent, but like he was more of like a vindictive, like, oh, I'll like fuck you over in any other way that I can, whether it's, using your social security number for something, whether it's like flagging your ads, whether it's like just making it hard for you to operate in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
But I was
totally.
scared that he was gonna, like, hurt me, but he didn't.
What did the drug situation look like for you at this time? What are you using?
Primarily meth, and I was smoking heroin.
Okay. So smoking meth, being afraid that he was gonna come find you is a bad recipe. So you're paranoid, but there's actually some truth to it.
Oh, full-blown psychosis, yeah. Not sleeping, yeah, it was crazy.
How long does this go on?
How long does what go on?
Where you're done with him, you're on your own, you're in Texas, still working as an escort with your own clientele, living in hotels, this period.
Yeah. So, like, probably around 3 or 4 months before I'm able to get a car and I'm able to get an apartment. And then once I get an apartment, he doesn't know where I am. I'm able to get, like, a passport ID at the federal, building, and I was, like, living under fraudulent, like, names and Social Security numbers, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get my own place, and then, like, I think at that point, he kind of, like, falls off. I have a new number, we're not in contact at all, he doesn't know where I'm at anymore. But he ends up, like, reaching out to me at one point, and I'm, like, in a totally different place, all his girls are gone, you know what I mean? Things have he's, like, not he's down and out, and Backpage had gone down, which was, like, a big deal to the Pippo industry. But I wasn't using that anymore, I wasn't relying on that at all, so it really didn't affect me at that point, but
Oh, how old are you during this time?
I was with him for 2 years, so maybe I was, like, 24 or 25.
Okay. And how old are you right now, if you don't mind my asking?
33.
Okay, and you've been sober 6 years. So we're a couple of years away at this point from you finally actually getting sober. So you end up in California, which is where you still are. What gets you to California? So you've got the apartment in Texas, you're paying for it, you're still escorting, you're using. Why do you go to California?
So at this point, I'm living in, like, uptown Dallas, which is, like, a nice area, I'm making a lot of money, I still have a drug habit, but I'm, like, figuring it out. I mean, I'm making a lot of money, so I'm able to support my habit, I'm able to pay the bills. And I'm, like, traveling. I'm traveling all over the country and, like, I'm in Houston, I'm in Austin, I'm in Dallas, I'm in, Boston, I'm in New York. I'm traveling all over the country for work. And yeah, and I end up in Los Angeles for work, and I end up, like, losing I end up staying there longer than I expected. So I'm supposed to be there a week. I end up staying for 2. I only brought enough drugs for a week, and I've been all over the country actively using, and, like, when you're in a Florida or you're in a shitty area and you run out of drugs, like, you just go to the worst neighborhood and you usually can find drugs. And so I go to downtown LA, I go to Skid Row, and I'm like, "Well, I need to get enough drugs for the next week." And I find I meet some people and I get what I need, and I'm supposed to leave, it's, like, right before Christmas, I remember, like, 2 or 3 days before Christmas, and I'm supposed to go home for Christmas to see my sister. And I end up not getting on the flight because I get my ID and my phone stolen by somebody in a shared Uber,
Oh,
which is, like, not
shit.
even somebody in the streets,
Not
yeah,
even a drug addict, just some asshole in an Uber? Oh my god.
yeah, I mean, they might have been a drug addict, but yeah,
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 yeah.
and, I can't get on the flight, I can't get any cash, I don't have my phone, I can't even call any clients, I don't have any phone number, like, I don't have any. And I one of those people who I bought drugs from, I go see them, and I ended up staying in this, like, shady, shady motel for, like, 2 months with this guy who speaks no English, who's, like, in MacArthur Park, which is, yeah, rough. And yeah, I just end up never leaving. I always have a plan to go back to Texas, and, like, I have an apartment there and I have stuff there, and I, like, just never go back.
So during this whole time, like when you have your own place, when you're away from Money Mike, you've got your own place and you're traveling and stuff. How do you feel and you're 25, 24? How do you feel internally? Do you feel like this is what I want to do with my life at 25? I'm okay with this. Or was there still that like deep sadness where it's like, no, I did want to do something different and I don't want to be using. What did you feel during this time?
The last few years, I didn't have any more sadness about like, oh, I wanna it was like I was past that. I was in a place of acceptance of like how my life was, and I was just like committed to the bit. Like, this is where I'm at. I'm probably not never gonna get sober, let's be honest. I'm like, let's be honest, we've tried that. It doesn't work. We tried a lot of times. We've been to a lot of detoxes. Like, it's not gonna happen. It doesn't really need to happen. It's not possible anyways. And so I'm just like, this is what it is. Like, I'm making good money. I'm like getting high, and like, I'll just do this until I eventually die. Because I figured that I'd probably die within a few years, like, which I was like also okay with. I was like, okay, that's just what it is. I guess this comes with the territory and the lifestyle that I'm living. I mean, I thought it was going to be something like dramatic. And I don't know if it's because I'm like self centered and like egocentric or what, but I'm like, oh, it's not going to be an overdose because like I've been using for 4 or 5 years straight at this point. And at this point, I've graduated from like heroin. I can't even shoot heroin anymore because my veins are so shut up. And I like get to a place where I can't even get high smoking it. I'm smoking 4 or 5 grams of heroin a day and it's not even touching me. And so I find fentanyl when I'm in LA, like straight fentanyl. And I probably would have gotten sober maybe a little bit sooner had I not found it because I was getting sick and like couldn't get off E or get high.
Yeah.
And I end up smoking fentanyl for, till I end up getting sober, and meth is kind of part of it as well. And yeah, I have really no intentions of getting sober. I'm like,
That's how I felt too in the end for the most part. 'Cause I also still enjoyed using to a
same,
little, I didn't
same,
wanna be different. I didn't wanna be different, I didn't wanna, like, not drink or even though I barely drank because 'cause I'm doing all these drugs, I didn't
same.
wanna be like a sober person, you know?
No,
I was at that place too where I'm like, "This is just my life."
sounds like a
Unlike
nightmare.
yeah, yeah, it's a nightmare. It sounds like a nightmare to not be using drugs. Like, I don't wanna live like that even though my current life was awful. It's like the addict quandary that they don't see though, right? Like, your life is so bad, but it seems like being sober would be awful, you know? Unlike you though, I couldn't finance it. I never had enough money. That's what would make me get sober. I never had enough because I would try to steal. I was such a small time hustle person, stealing a printer cartridge from Walmart and then trading it for a gift card and giving the gift card to a connect. That was my daily life. That was my shuffle. And it's very difficult to maintain any sort of habit like that. So I would run out of money, is what would happen with me first. And then I would get tired of doing my little small time shit like that. So, what finally gets you sober?
Well, so I was crossing immigrants over the border in my trunk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How does that happen? Who asks you to do that?
Oh, I mean, some
I don't
people,
need a name. I don't need a
Yeah.
name, but you just
Yeah.
meet people and they say
Yeah.
like this is
Yeah. I'm hanging out with a
it's a
bunch
hustle
of
out here. It's
I'm
definitely a
I'm
hustle out here.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hanging out with a bunch of gang members. Gang members are connected to, gang members in Mexico, and I'm already going down to San Diego like once a month anyways cuz I would make more money when I was in a new city. So if I'm like in a new city, it's like almost like so silly, but like your favorite artist is in town, you know what I mean? Only this week, that kind of deal. It's like, so if you're in a city for a limited time, you make a lot more money,
Oh, okay, okay.
especially if it's like not your like home city. So I would like go down there for like a week every month and I would like make money escorting. And there's a lot of wealthy people down there. And so I was already going down there and they were like, hey, do you want to like go and cross people? And I was like, yeah, how much money? Because that was really like the only thing that I was focused on was like, how can I make more money? You know what I mean? Like the most money. Because I was never towards the end, especially when it became like kind of like the high end escort stuff. It was like I never had no money. I was never like down to the last gram. I was never like worried about the wake up towards the end. I definitely had experiences early on, like before that, where I was like when I was in the relationships and secretly using, and I was like trying to like even as a dancer, sometimes I was making pretty good money, but sometimes there would be nights where I was like low. But for the most part, it had been a long time since that I had like had to worry about like, oh my God, I'm gonna be sick in the morning. The only time that would happen is if my dealer ran out, but usually I was picking up like when I was down to like 2 or 3 grams. So I was always ahead of it, and then I also had money. I was living in nice places and, like, I was driving nice cars, like, I was, financially doing fine, so, like, it's not that I needed more money and I needed to do that. It was, like, also I just wanted to feel something. I was, like, addicted to the chaos and, like, addicted to the lifestyle a little bit. It's like, "Oh, what can I do that's a little bit crazier to feel something?" Because, like, this whole, like, crazy life I'm living is, like, getting kind of, like, it's getting kinda boring, which is a crazy thing to say, right? Boring, right? I'm like, I'm like, "Yeah, risk is not that high, reward's pretty good, good money, willing to do it." And so I started doing that.
So you do it more than once. You didn't get caught like the first time?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have another question though too. You said when you like go to another city and it's like, "Oh, your favorite person is in town." How do they know that?
So there's like this like whole kind of network of underground like sex work sites where
Oh, okay.
people who are like it's like an invite only type deal, and there's a bunch of them. There's not just one, there's multiple, and I'm sure there's other ones now that I don't even know exist. But there's some that have been around for a long time. And like the only way you could get in is really that like invite only, and you have to prove your actual identity to make sure that you are who you say you are. Now, that's not what you post on the site where other people can see, but the moderators can see who you are to make sure that you're not the cops, to make sure that you're legitimate. And so once you're like part of these communities, you're reviewed and people like know who you are. And like when they're in your area, they'll come see you, like if they're traveling businessmen or something like that. Or if you're in another area, you post to add in that area, like, hey, I'm in town these days to these days. Like I'm trying to book some appointments, and you'll book some appointments. And it's much safer again because most of these people are verified, and you can see other girls that they've seen, and their real name. I mean, it's a lot safer. I'm not 100% safe, but really but much safer. So that's usually how it was. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You get reviews? There's reviews?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is the process for bringing somebody back across the border in your car?
Well, so you would find out where you had to go, like, right before the ride. They would, like, tell you, they'd meet you, map literally where you needed to go. And then you would also have someone, like, in your Bluetooth in your ear, like, "Okay, get onto this exit. Okay, do you see this exit? This is the exit, so you're gonna," and they would tell you where you needed to go. And you also had a general idea as well because they would kind of map it out ahead of time, but it was different every time. And they would navigate you until you got to the pickup point. And when you got to that pickup point, you would have like, you know, two or three illegal immigrants hop out of a bush. And then they would get in the trunk of your car.
Okay. And then you're not picking them up in Mexico though, right? You're picking them up already across the border and then bringing them back. Because I interviewed somebody else who did this exact same thing, and yeah, you don't cross into Mexico and get them. You're up here in, like, San Ysidro or something, and then you just bring them further.
There's a whole
It's a whole
network.
network.
They're
Right.
crossing them, they're bringing them to the border, and you're literally right at the border. Like if there's a
Right.
fence, like you're on one side of the fence and they like,
Okay.
are on the
Yeah, yeah,
other.
yeah. Wow.
So yeah, because then you have to go through, like, customs. You don't have to go through customs if you don't cross the actual border. You just have to go through a checkpoint.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you're bringing them through customs.
No, I'm bringing them through
Or
the
through a
checkpoint.
checkpoint, through the checkpoint, right. And then eventually you get caught, right? And this is sort of the beginning of the end is when you get busted. How do you get busted?
I picked up too many. I had one in the passenger seat. I mean, I don't know. Maybe my wheels were, like, I have no idea how they knew.
Yeah.
But it was probably the illegal immigrant in my passenger seat that, like, set off the alarm bells. I just got cocky and, clumsy or whatever, and because I just, like, been waved through so many times
Yeah.
until I wasn't, and, like, I was just living such a chaotic lifestyle at this point. Like, I just didn't really give a fuck, to be honest. I didn't even care. It's not like maybe I subconsciously wanted to get caught, but I don't think I was trying to get caught. I think I was just trying to push the envelope. Like, how far can I push the envelope and get away with this? You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, when they caught me, I didn't cry. I wasn't scared. I was just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I just didn't care about anything.
So did they send you over to secondary and search the car?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you
They
have
waved
dope
me into
on you?
secondary. I did. I wasn't supposed to. That's something you're not supposed to do when you're picking up people. They're like, "Do not bring anything. Do not bring weed. Do not bring any drugs. Do all the drugs you wanna do afterwards, but don't be high when you go." And, like, of course, I, like, I never not have drugs on me. It's just
Right? That's why I
ever.
asked. I knew it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
never.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have a crazy amount. Most of it is back in the hotel room I'm staying at, but I have like a couple grams like in a little baggie, and it's like inside me. I used to drive around with my drugs in my underwear.
Yeah, me too. Well, I used to
No,
drive around with them up in me in case
no,
I
see, I
went to
wouldn't do that.
jail.
I would put them in my
Oh,
underwear, and that way I could just easily kind of put them where they needed to go,
sure. Okay.
which is what I did. And yeah, but not much. Like yeah, 2 or 3 grams, nothing crazy.
Fuck. So as you're pulling over to secondary, you adjust it so it's in there when you go to jail.
Mhm.
So they take you to jail right that second. They take you to the feds, right?
Yep. Well, I go to the border patrol station for like maybe a day or two, and then I tell them I'm like I know the drill. I've been in the jail before. I tell them I'm a drug addict. I make it seem really really terrible. I'm not going to survive. And the feds they have contracts with hospitals, so
Oh.
they send us to they sent me they had a contract with oh my god what is it called I'm blanking. It's a ghetto hospital right on the border. And they send me to this hospital and like I have a US Marshal with me, but for like 2 days and they're trying to give me benzos on an IV. It's not so easy for me.
Oh, fuck.
And yeah, I spend 2 days there but I still have all the drugs inside me.
Oh, shit. Okay. Are you able to do any of them yet or not really?
No. I'm have a
No?
US Marshal with
Okay.
me 24/7. So I'm in the Pine Valley Border Patrol station and there's a camera. So like yeah, I'm not doing them there. Then I get to the hospital and I have a US Marshal with me 24/7, and so I'm not doing them there. So it's not until I actually get to MCC that I actually try to do any of them. But a lot of it had like it wasn't wrapped to be in my body. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Okay.
So a lot
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
had
yeah.
leaked out, which is maybe why I didn't get so sick that first week. I don't know. I think it was like leaking out.
Yeah, maybe it was just like a slow drip.
Yeah.
Fuck. So how much time do you get from that?
So I'm sentenced to 36 months. I was going to do 30, but I got out early because of COVID. I was a nonviolent offender, first
Oh,
offense. And so I
okay.
ended up doing like 18 months.
Okay. Okay. And
Hmm.
is that when you stop using drugs? Is that your sobriety date?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. So
No.
what's your sobriety date when you
My sobriety date September 20th. It's a couple months before I get out because COVID happens and we're like locked down and I just don't have the same level of access and the facility I was in like was pretty tight. There was no movement in the last facility I was at and so like I'm a couple months sober when I'm
Oh,
finally
okay.
released.
Okay, so you use in there.
Yeah.
Okay. People just bring in whatever they bring in when they come in and
Yeah, pruno, drugs, whatever, anything that comes around. And then eventually, yeah, things dry up. It's like height of COVID, no toilet
oh,
paper, world shut
fuck.
down. And they
Yeah.
end up like releasing not just me, but a bunch of girls who were nonviolent and weren't on like an indictment. And I get out and I have a couple months of sobriety and that's kind of where my sober journey begins. And I had no intention again. I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get high as soon as I get out of here." I was like, "No, don't wanna go back to prison. I really don't wanna go back to prison." And I was gonna do the full time if I failed a single drug test. So I'm like, "I'm not gonna do drugs, like, I'm gonna just maybe even not drink for a little bit, like, just keep it together." And, like, the thought to drink kinda, like, popped up, like, a couple days after I got out, and I'm like, "I should go have a drink," which is, like, always what my delusion is like, "Oh, I can drink. I'm just a drug addict." But I don't know, I think I had, like, a moment of grace, like, a little bit of clarity in that moment where, like, "Oh, no, you can't drink. Are you insane? If you drink, you're gonna use." And, like and I was in this, like, halfway house sober living place, and there was, like, one guy who was sober there, and he became my Eskimo into sobriety. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because you have no resources, right? So this is all state
None.
facilities, state sober livings, all that kind of stuff. State halfway house, whatever, wherever they sent you.
So, no. So I I really didn't wanna go to the reentry program, which is, like, federal they call it the federal halfway house. It's just essentially reentry. It's not necessarily treatment. It's a reentry program. So I had like gotten a letter from a sober living that a girl in jail had told me about. I like three-way called on collect and like gotten like a letter of admission, having no idea I was going to get out a year early. I do this like months in advance. And I'm like, well, when the day does come, I want to like be prepared so I don't have to go to the reentry program. And so I go and I write this whole letter and I like read it to the judge And I'm like, I'm a drug addict. If I go back to this place, like I just kind of take accountability for everything. Like, and I tell them that I have this option to go to this like sober living environment and it's very cheap. It's like 5 or 600 bucks a month. And I asked my dad for 200 bucks. I asked my sister and brother-in-law for 200 bucks. I asked my other sister for 200 bucks. And like, I have like really just enough to pay for that first month of sober living. And I'm like, I'll figure the rest out later. And I get to this place and like really nobody's sober. It's like a boarding house. It's like a trap house, sober living. There's bed bugs, people are using, but one guy was sober there. One guy was legitimately sober, like working a program, like involved in the recovery community. And like he just like kept like bothering me. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, he was just so excited that I was like out of prison. He's like, that's dope. He's like, man, you got to go to these meetings. Like, he just kept like really talking it up. Like, it was like, the dopest thing in the world. And honestly, everything about him like annoyed the fuck. I hated him. I couldn't stand him. I'm like, I couldn't stand his smile. He would like rap. I couldn't stand him rapping. Like everything about him, just I did not like. I was like, just get the fuck away from me. Like, And like, yeah, the obsession to drink had came back. And I just like, I knew in my heart, I was like, oh my God. And what am I gonna do? We're in COVID lockdown. I don't know anything. I don't have a phone. I don't have health insurance. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know anything about Medi-Cal, like getting into a Medi-Cal facility. Like, I don't know. And my probation officer, the federal probation officer, shows up. He's like, "You can't stay here. This is a men's sober living. There's nothing but men here." And they're like,
Oh, it was a
there's like,
men's sober living? That's where you
yes,
went?
yes. Yeah, yeah. I had no idea though. Like when I
Yeah,
called, I'm
yeah.
surprised this like old guy just like, said yes,
Yeah,
who
that's
owned it.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's like, "You can't stay here." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" He was like, "Well, you have, 48 hours to figure it out, or you're going to the halfway house, the federal halfway house." I'm like, "Oh my God." And I'm just like spiraling everything. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I need to drink, and everything's kind of like seems overwhelming, right? And I just asked that, obnoxious guy who was like really just carrying a message to me for help. And he let me use his phone and put me on the phone with one of his mentor's wife. And she was sober and I didn't know anything about her. Our stories were drastically different. Like she was a straight alcoholic, never used drugs, got sober her first attempt, never went to treatment. Like I didn't know any of that, but honestly, it didn't really matter. It like truly didn't matter. All I knew is like when she talked about the experiences and the feelings associated with like drinking and how what that was like I believed that she was like that she had what I had. Like I genuinely believed her in the depths of my soul. And like I also knew that like she wasn't living that way anymore. Like I genuinely could sense just on the phone that she was like happy. Like, right? We talk about happy, joyous, and free. And like I believed that she was. And so yeah, that's kind of where my sober journey began. And that person, Jimmy, who was like my Eskimo, is still like a good friend. And I love
Does
him
he
now. He's
still
still
annoy you? Does he
oh,
still
he's
annoy
still
you?
yeah, 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 for sure.
So wait, where do you go though? You've got 48 hours. Where do you go?
Oh, so I get on the phone with her and she's like, "Okay, this is what you're going to do." And she just like breaks it down for me of like what I need to do. Right now your focus needs to be this. She's like, "Call every place that you can, see what you can do." And I just start like making phone calls. I'm
Okay.
making like
To
40, 50 phone
rehabs,
calls.
to treatment centers.
Yeah, well, sober
Okay.
livings because I don't have insurance.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, like I can't
Okay.
even go to a rehab. I don't even
It's
know. I
such a
know nothing about
nightmare. Yeah.
treatment. I
Yeah.
know
Uh-huh.
nothing about insurance at this point. Like I have no experience with this. And so I start calling all these different places, and Jimmy had told me about a place, a nonprofit called A New Way of Life. And it's have you ever heard of Homeboy Industries?
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's like the same deal, right? A New Way of Life based out of South Central. It's like a nonprofit organization specifically for people who have recently been released. And it's geared towards women because the woman who started it, was in prison and has been sober, 30 plus years. And she started this like really amazing nonprofit organization. And so he like tells me about this place. They're offering stimuluses to people who were released within 12 months. And like I didn't need an ID. Like I was able to show them a picture of it. And so I take the bus to South Central, I apply and I get this like stimulus and I don't even have clothes. You know what I mean? I don't have shoes. I don't have a toothbrush. Like, I don't have anything. And I'm like worried about like getting enough money. Like the old man that owned that boarding house ended up like prorating and giving me most of my money back. He was legitimately sober. He was just like 85 years old and it was COVID. So like he wasn't like an active, He wasn't actively involved in that boarding house sober living, but like he had a good heart. He's still around. I see him, within my sober community, but he ended up giving me most of my money back. And I get the stimulus check from a new way of life, this reentry project, and they give me like 1800 bucks or something like that. And so I'm able to get like shoes, clothes, toothbrush, and pay for 1 month of sober living. And there's a place that calls me back and they tell me it's like 2500, and I like hang up. I'm like, sorry, I can't afford that. And I just hang up the phone and they call me back and they're like, wait, 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 what can you afford? Because it was COVID. Nobody was in there sober living. It was empty. I didn't know there was a negotiation that was possible with this. And so they end up letting me move in for like 1200 bucks, and I have 500 that I get back from the other place, and I'm able to squirrel together like another 700 and like borrow from like 5 or 6 different family members for that first month. And then I get the stimulus check and I'm able to pay for the second month, and I'm able to get a job, and like everything just starts to like fall together. And all the while, I'm like talking to this woman that Jimmy the poet had connected me with, and she's like guiding me through like the steps of like maintaining sobriety and abstinence from alcohol. And like, I'm like going to these like recovery meetings, and I'm like getting outside and like working out, and I'm getting active, and I'm like calling strange women I don't know who are also newly sober in sobriety, and like asking them how they are, and like seeing how I could be of service. And all this is on Zoom because it's
Yeah,
COVID.
that's
So
crazy that it
like,
was all on Zoom too, that sucks, and this makes me emotional to hear you talk about it because it's just such like, it's so difficult when you're in that position and you have absolutely nothing and you just have to, like, throw together a couple $100 for a sober living. Because I was in that same position, but I wasn't even in a place where I could borrow 2 from here, 2 from here, 2 from there, nowhere. A guy let me live in a sober living for free, I just had to pay him back, and otherwise I couldn't have ever done it. And then meanwhile, I'm talking to my person, also my, mentor, Rachel, whom my audience has met, or, I've heard them, and going to meetings when I can. What was your first job when you were living in that sober living?
now, I just want to say the sober living I ended up at, it was not terrible. It was way better than the trap house with the bed bugs and the people using. It wasn't like a great sober living though. It's like it was just like it was a means to an end. There was nobody using in the house. It was a safe and sober environment. There was like very little structure, accountability, and I was just on a different tip. Like something shifted during this time where I went from like, oh, I want to drink, to like, oh, maybe I should try and stay sober for a little bit. And it really was just like a little bit, like, oh, I'll stay sober for a little bit. And I didn't want to go back to prison. That was a huge motivator. But I had done like 12 step when I was a teenager that first time. And I say I did it. I like went to meetings. I never like worked a program. I had a sponsor by like title, but like I hadn't like really done it. And so like I did believe that it was possible for it to work because I had examples of that when I was a teenager. Like some seeds were planted. And it was the only thing I hadn't done was really throw myself into like all things recovery, like change everything in my life. I was willing to change the fact that I didn't use or drink, but I wasn't willing to change the people I was spending my time around. I was willing to change maybe those people I was around, but I wasn't willing to change how I was making money. I wasn't willing to live honestly. Like I wasn't like really willing to have like a connection with something greater than myself. Like that was like kind of cringe. Didn't really like that idea. Like I just wasn't willing to do all the things. And so I kind of just made this decision at some point where I was like, okay, I'll do all the things and like just see how, like, it's probably not going to work, but I'll just like, I'll try it out. Cause like, what do I have to lose? Everything really, freedom. And like, I've been to jail a bunch of times. Like it's not the fact that I went to jail that something was different or that I was at risk of going to jail. I told you I'll just run. You know what I mean? Until the wheels fell off. Like that's it. Yes, it was a helpful motivating external factor, but like it's not the first time I've had that motivating external factor. I've had that so many times and then I end up in jail. I mean, county jail, state prison, federal prison, like juvie, like I just nothing can stop me when I am like not ready. And so I end up in this like place. One of the house managers relapses like right after, and she becomes a client. And I, fresh out of federal prison, I got like maybe 5 months over at this point, but I'm like really diving into this like sobriety thing in a way that is like miraculous, to be honest, like in a way that I'd never been willing to. And nobody else in this house is like doing that. They don't
So
give a
you
fuck.
become the house manager
Yeah. Yeah, I become the house manager. So now I have free rent. So now third month rent is good. And then I'm taking a bus. I apply to be like a behavioral health technician at a treatment center in the valley. And I don't have a license. So I'm taking a bus from
from South
Hollywood,
Central to the Valley or from
well, West
Hollywood, okay.
Hollywood, yeah, to the valley every
Oh,
day to be a tech at a treatment center. And like, yeah, that's kind of like where the journey begins. And
wow.
yeah,
And you've been sober ever since. I mean, that was 6 years ago.
sober ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where do you meet your how do you meet your husband?
Good question. I didn't want to date in the rooms of recovery because I thought, like, these people are too fucked up. These people, I'm one of them. But I ended up going on Bumble in 2020. I like waited a year till I started dating. And in 2020, I go on Bumble and I like start dating for really the first time in my life. Like, let's be honest, I had not had like any kind of normal dating life. It's like I was meeting my boyfriends at the strip club, or, all my like relationships were sex work related. Like, maybe I met boys at parties or at the bar, but like I had never like gone out and sat down without like alcohol being involved and like just had a conversation with somebody and got to know them. So here I am, like 26 years old, like really going on a date for the first time, and I start dating and I go on a bunch of dates with a bunch of different guys. And it was really good for me. It was super healthy just to like kind of get out there and like and find out who I am and what I like and just reintroduce myself to that world. And I end up meeting another sober person on Bumble who is in
Oh,
the
wow.
recovery rooms.
Oh, that's so cool. Dude, that
Yeah,
happens a lot. Like,
I
I've
know.
had a lot of guests that I interview that they met somebody on Bumble who also just happened to be sober and
I was
involved in
trying to
12 step.
avoid sober
It's, like,
people.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes, I
You
was
know what?
trying to
Yeah.
avoid 12-step sober people, and I go on like 50 first dates. Like, I was like out there, girl. I was out and about. I was going on all kinds of dates. And then, but like normal dates, I'm not like sleeping with all these people. I'm like genuinely getting to know people. And then the person that I end up, falling in love with and marrying is another sober member of the
So,
12-step program.
how would you handle not drinking on a date? Did you say on your profile, "I'm sober"? How would you handle that?
No, no, I didn't
Okay.
say that. I did put I don't drink and I don't smoke, but I didn't put that I was sober. I don't think that I even put on like who I was looking for because I didn't necessarily want to be with a sober person. I didn't want to be with an alcoholic or a drug addict. And I would say like 98% of the guys that I went out with were not. They were normal guys. There was like one or two that I met that I'm like, I think they have a problem. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like, you spot it, you got it type deal, you know? But aside from that, they were, like, normal guys. I went on a date with a guy who was, like, the manager of a whiskey company, and, like, we went out a bunch of times, and, like, he was, like, very much a normal guy. Yeah, like, not an alcoholic at all, like.
And they didn't care, and I asked because this is a question I get sometimes from, especially women listeners. They didn't care that you weren't drinking. It wasn't a big deal, like, "Oh, why aren't you drinking? Get a drink, blah, blah, blah." Because that's my experience too. Nobody has ever cared that I don't drink, ever.
Yeah, no, it was not really that big of a deal. At first, it was a little weird. Usually, I would say something like, especially if it was, like, the first date and I was just getting to know someone, they'd be like, "Oh, do you want a drink?" And I would just order something normal. They'd be like, "Oh, you can have a cocktail if you want." I'd be like, "I'm better company when I don't drink." Which is true.
Which is true. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
that's a
probably
good
rob you
answer.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm much better company when I don't drink. And like sometimes they would like ask and like be like, "Oh, well, why don't you drink?" And I'm like, "Well, I used to." And like, when I drink, I end up drinking too much and it gets super chaotic. And yeah, I just don't drink anymore. And they're like, "All right, 90%." Unless you're an alcoholic, it's really
You
not
don't
that
really care.
serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Normal
Agree.
people really don't give a fuck.
No,
If
they really
somebody
don't.
cares that much and they're trying to pressure you,
It's weird.
they probably have
Right.
something going on.
Right.
They could be, maybe,
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah.
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 So for the most part, it was not a thing. And then, there was a couple people that I went out with a few times and like maybe got to know a little bit better. And like I would like kind of tell them like a little bit more, maybe not fully disclose all the details because I was just getting to know them, but I would tell them I was in recovery and I would tell them, that like what I needed to do in order to stay sober. And a lot of them were like interested, but not in a like, this is weird thing. It was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like I have a friend who does this, or I have a family member, like, oh, that's awesome for you. Like they liked it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't a bad
Totally.
thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Were you afraid to tell your husband just the last couple of questions here. Were you afraid to tell your husband about any of your history, the specific history? Were you embarrassed or what he would think?
Yeah. So I don't think I told him right away. But the fact that he was sober and, like, in recovery and, like, I was, like, willing to share more with him in the beginning than I had been willing to share with other people that I was getting to know, just because there's this, like, this connection that we have, because we've gone through some of the same things and came out the other end. But relatively quickly, I just, like, told him. And I think at first he was like, "What the fuck?" Like, he wasn't judgmental or anything, but he was like, I think his fear was like so our sobriety dates are about 3 weeks apart.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's
Okay.
September 1st, I'm September 20th, same year. So, like, we both didn't date in our first year of sobriety and then started dating and then ended up meeting each other. And so when I told him, I think knowing now, he told me, he was like, my fear was like, is she still like this? Like, is this a thing that's still going to continue to happen? But then I mean, we were spending so much time together, and he was just seeing how I like moved through the world, that he was, it was fine.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
you guys got married and obviously you've lived together. You live in the Valley in LA, right?
I live in the West Side.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And then how did you get to what are the steps now? You're opening your own recovery center.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially ended up doing like pretty much every position in the treatment space outside of like being an owner and the clinical side of things, because I'm not a clinician. So I did operations, I was the housing director, I was admissions director, business development director, like dabbled in the digital. I like done all the different things. And eventually, I was working for a company for a few years where I was the director of business development, like a really great organization. And I had gotten to a place where, I loved what I do. I had some good examples of what like good treatment looked like and what not so good treatment looked like. And I got to a place where, me and my one of my partners, Dustin, like we had been kind of in similar positions where we worked for really great companies, and we really wanted to create something that was meaningful and different. And we'd been talking about it, and then we started to put together a business plan, which neither of us had ever done. And that was like the first step. It was like, okay, we're meeting, we're talking, we're exploring, are we aligned, like our values, our ethics, our mission, like that was always really important to us. Like, okay, the money will come, like if you're doing the right thing, but like how can we create something that's like really meaningful and like keep sight of like what our mission is, which is to like help people have long-term sustainable recovery, not just for the 30 days they're in treatment, but like setting them up for success. So we create this business plan, and then we start talking to people and investors and all that fun stuff, and like totally like fish out of water
But
type
that's
deal.
really inspiring. You were able to get investors and loans. Like you did it
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
no
yeah, we
it's not
started
like
to
you're
just
sitting on a trust
well, it's
fund.
also
You
funny
gathered
too.
it.
This is what my experience is. Getting money is actually the easy part. um, it's about like, for us at least, it was really important that the people that we were aligning ourselves with and taking money from were aligned with what our mission and goals were, because there was a couple people who were more than happy to give us money because they believed in us, and we weren't willing to accept that money. Not because the deal wasn't good, but because like we could just kind of see some of the signs were there that this might not end up being what we want to do, and we really wanted to keep it mission oriented. And so we finally, we have a couple other people on our team who are partners as well, who have been working in the field a really long time. All of us are in recovery, all of us are sober. It's really easy to have a fancy house. Like, we have the fancy luxury house, like the home is beautiful. It's like in the Hollywood Hills, very high end and luxury, but like how can like the insides be as good as the outside? So, yeah, we're like really just trying to build a team and create something that's special, and
That's
like,
really cool.
yeah, yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, we have an amazing team, we're lucky.
Do you take insurance?
We will once we're licensed.
Okay. Oh,
So
right.
we
Yeah.
have
Okay.
so
Okay.
we have an all men's inpatient detox and residential program, and all women's inpatient and detox and
Separate.
residential program. Separate houses, yeah, all in the Hollywood Hills. And then we have like an executive program that's more geared towards working professionals. We will take some insurance there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Your dad and your family now, are they just so relieved that this is where you're at now? I mean, they must be.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've redeveloped a relationship with my mom.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, yeah, after
Okay,
13
okay.
years.
Whoa, of not speaking?
Yeah.
Did you reach out to her or did she reach out to you?
I probably reached out to her. I think I
Okay,
definitely reached out to her.
okay.
And we, it takes time. We're just getting to know each other almost.
Yeah, totally. Did she
Yeah.
know what was going on with you while it was happening?
Bits and pieces. I'm sure she would hear it from my sister.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But like she
Wow.
didn't know the intricate detail. A lot of my family didn't know the intricate details of what was going on until I was like in prison.
Yeah, okay. So, last question. Is there a component of your recovery program, like a principle or an experience or a new habit like meditating or fitness? You mentioned fitness, some sort of component of your recovery program that was incredibly transformative, like your favorite piece of recovery?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite
Okay.
piece because
Or
it's
something
like all of it.
transformative. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say into my second year of sobriety, I went from like being a like survivor sobriety is what I always call it. Like, oh my God, I'll do anything. I just don't want to get loaded again. And it was like almost manic, you know what I mean? And overwhelming and like exciting and scary and all the things. And like into the second year of sobriety, I feel like I started to like really settle into this idea of like what recovery could be for me. And when that happened, it was like, okay, I hear a lot of talk about like a spiritual experience or an awakening or higher power or God or whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but some sense of like spirituality and connection to something outside of myself. And like I had been taking actions as if I believed in this thing, but I didn't feel like I had like a conscious connection. And so the idea that like this idea of something greater than myself is actually within me was like profound for me. It's like I had been like even in sobriety, I had been searching outside of myself for like a solution to my answer. And like even as I got sober, I'm like, oh, if I just have the good relationship, I'll be okay. If I just have a better job, if my credit score is finally better, if I finally get my license, okay, I finally get the car. If I just get this promotion, it's like the bigger my life got, the more it was always the next thing I was looking for, and I like still wasn't feeling 100% like satisfied. And so I realized that I was like looking in all the wrong places. Like all those things are good. Like those are good things to happen to a person who in general, but like who's in recovery and trying to rebuild your life. But like those weren't the things that were giving me like fulfillment. And so I started to kind of like explore like more within like what that looks like, this idea of like a great reality or creative intelligence being like within me. And I started to really start to form some kind of a connection with this energy that I felt was within me. And then it was really profound to realize that like I didn't need to wait for the world to change in order to meet for me to find peace and serenity. Like I didn't need to wait for my mom to be different than how she is, or for my dad to be different than how he is, or for my husband to love me in the way I think he's supposed to love me, or talk to me in the way that I think he's supposed to talk to me, in order for me to find this idea of peace, because the idea of peace is actually within me. So it's like if I'm going to wait for the world to change forever before I'm going to be okay, I'm going to be waiting for the rest of my life. Like the only thing that needs to change is actually me. And when I change and I connect to this like energy that's within me, this idea of like spirituality that's within me, then my reaction and my perception of these things shifts, and I can find like true neutrality in it all. And that was profound.
Well, do you have a practice for doing that, like meditation or something like that? How do you connect?
A lot of different ways. I mean, prayer for sure, which is just like a conversation with, this energy. And I meditate. I am a huge runner. And so
I've
I
seen
definitely
that.
feel,
I've seen that. Oof,
yeah,
you're running
I
everywhere. Yeah.
I feel very, very close to that energy when I'm running. And then like also like when I connect with like people in general. And sometimes it's other people early in their recovery journey, and I get to show up and like be of service. And I really feel like the God inside of me and like the spirituality inside of me is able to connect to the spirituality inside of them. And like there's like a palpable connection. Like when I made that first call to that woman who ended up like starting my recovery journey, like I didn't know, we were just a phone call, like I didn't know anything about her, but I could like feel her energy, and it changed my life and inspired me to like think, okay, like maybe this thing is possible. And so if I could have the opportunity to be that same thing for just one person, whether it's through like mentorship or just like showing up and giving a ride or like sharing my experience, like that's, I mean, that's pretty profound. So
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really beautiful, and I'm just so proud of you. I'm so happy for you that you've that you found that piece of you inside that thought, "No, I deserve something better and bigger than this life." And I'm happy for you. I'm honored that you spent the time with me. Where can everybody connect with you? Because I know you have a podcast as well that I'm supposed to be on here soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't even have each other's numbers, so we'll
Oh,
share
yeah,
numbers after this, and
I'll
then
DM you my
we'll
number as soon as we're done.
okay. Okay, my podcast is The Peak of Possibility. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, and the treatment center is called Peak Path Health, and same thing, all those different social media outlets, and our website is peakpathhealth.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Glynis, so much for your time. I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It was great to meet you in the flesh.